Sam, Granville over in Knoxville. Sam, I made a joke in our last segment that we've talked to you one time before. It was kind of a drive-by situation. It was like a high and by as we chatted up with Sam Rothman. You just got your feet on the ground there. How does it feel to be there in Knoxville, especially after a big win on Saturday?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun here so far. My first day on the job was the Monday before Georgia that week, and so it was a learning curve, but also a lot going on, and just a wild roller coaster of emotions and just everything happening with College game day in town. And now it's like, okay, we've had a couple under our feet. We got UAB in, got some reps with that. This weekend in Starkville was a lot of fun. Casey went down there, so she got to experience all the cowbells and everything. Me and Sam were back here in Knoxville getting to, hopefully, okay, we gotta pull this one off. This is one that we got to pull off down there. A lot of nerves coming with that, but it was definitely a big win for the Vols. Almost lost it down there, but hey, if Heupel can win on the road, that's all that matters.
I think one of the big things about that game, it showed a lot of resilience from both Tennessee and Mississippi State. Obviously, Mississippi State is a much improved, much different football team than they were a year ago. And for Tennessee, after giving up a lot of points in Georgia and dealing with a lot of injuries, it really showed, in my opinion, a real gut check for this Josh Heupel team. What were your overall takeaways as what that game meant from a team perspective, let alone the scoreboard, but just what it meant from having that internal fortitude to come back and win?
No, I think the win was huge for the Vols, not just, keep us in playoff contention, but that has been something that they've talked about here over the last few years is, can Josh Heupel's teams win on the road? Can they win in those tough environments? It was this Vandy game that's coming up next week after the bye that last year, everybody was like, oh, no problem. And then they go and they lose that one, or sorry, not Vandy, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas that's coming up, and so to get this one down there in Starkville where they got a renewed energy, where they think they've got something special happening down there, and they might, they might have something brewing down there in Starkville. But this is just a big one, not just, for can this team make the playoffs, but man, we really can go on the road in those tough environments and win those tight games. Coach Heupel was saying this week that, after the game, he was talking about Joey Aguilar's performance, 2 interceptions. He had some ups and downs throughout the game, but it was that fourth quarter drive where he held them together. He went down and he tied the game. And he's like, hey, all that matters is the way that he finished. You can have as many ups and downs, as many interceptions as you want, as many batted balls that end up in the opposing team's hands. But if you can go and win us the game in the fourth quarter, that's all that I need from here. That's why they brought him here. That's why, he's somebody that the fans, the Vols fans, have just fallen in love with. And that team, is Deshaun Bishop that scored the game-winning, the game-tying touchdown or the advancing touchdown in overtime. And he's a local kid, went to Carnes High School here in Knoxville, so the fans just absolutely love that one. And the defense, it was one of those things where you didn't know if the defense having a good game or they having a bad game, and then they scored 2 touchdowns. So it's like, got to say that's a really good game. And then Arion Carter, he was the, defensive player of the week in the SEC. I believe it was 19 tackles. So as a whole, it wasn't the prettiest performance, but they came out with a win. It did a lot for this team. And I really think that it's going to boost their confidence moving forward of, hey, okay, sure, Starkville isn't Tuscaloosa, but we can go on the road and win in these tough environments.
Sam, I got to be honest, I wasn't watching the Tennessee game in full. I kind of had the Ole Miss LSU game on, and I just saw all the game updates. You talked a little bit about Joey Aguilar's performance. What did you make of it? Was it poor decision-making? Was it just a bad game?
I think of his 5 interceptions this season, 3 of them have been tipped, and some of that is, hey, maybe don't throw into those tight windows. Maybe, sometimes those balls are, you put it in the wrong place to get it tipped. But his decision-making as a whole, I think, has been pretty solid this season. He is a gunslinger. We saw his film at App State. He's somebody who is going to win you games by throwing for 300, 400 yards, and he could sometimes lose you games by throwing those 2 or 3 interceptions just because he wants to throw the ball down the field. And And there, of course, I don't know, like I said, I didn't watch all that much, but he threw a deep ball to Brazel that ended up being called back for an offensive pass interference, which, my opinions on that, you can go back and look at the film and see that that wasn't offensive pass interference. But I think Joey's still coming into his own here. I think so far, and even the Georgia game was a real wake up, because up until that game, it was, okay, I have the most athletic receivers on the field. They're going to go and make plays for me. And then the Georgia game was like, okay, their DBs can go and contend with our guys. And I think he's starting to learn from that is, hey, I can't just chuck the ball downfield and hope that, that same, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek's down there somewhere type vibe. But I think he's starting to learn, hey, I do have some really athletic receivers, but I got to make those smart plays. I got to throw the ball out of bounds. I got to, instead of taking that sack, I got to, scramble, throw it away. Got to make the smart plays. He is coming into his own. I think as we move more into SEC play and then get another one with Arkansas coming to town next weekend, I think he's going to, continue to find that comfort, especially back home. He does have more of a comfort factor here in Neyland Stadium, but he's got some more growing to do, but he certainly is doing a great job. And that Week 8 matchup at Alabama will really tell us all we need to know about Joey Aguilar.
Absolutely. It's always the best when you're able to not play your best and still come away with the win. Joey Aguilar did that. We got a chance to hear from his head coach and Josh Heupel on that performance in Starkville.
Well, it showed up at the end of the game. Big drive, big conversions. Showed itself there. There's some things, early, middle, third quarter that he would like to have back, and we'd like to have back. But the fact that he just kept competing, is a really positive sign. One of the things that we love about him.
One of the things I really love about the development of a season is are guys that you think might have the talent, might have the juice, and then by the time the season starts, it really pops. Chris Brazel might be one of those guys where I think if you're ranking SEC wide receivers, you can't make a list of 5 and not put him on there right now. What do you make of just how much he's exploded and really helped out Aguilar, Coach Heupel, in the offense?
No, Brazel, he has been outstanding this season. And, he leads the nation with 7 passing or receiving touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it would be 8 right now, if not for, in my opinion, a missed call. But, hey, we'll leave that be. I think he'll continue racking up those numbers this season. Brazel's been outstanding. I think he's somebody that as the season progresses, you're going to start hearing his name more as talked about as, okay, watch out for the NFL draft, because me personally, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and seeing Mike Evans get injured and knowing, hey, he's at the end of his career, I'm watching Chris Brazel and I'm like, man, Mike Evans got maybe 1 or 2 more seasons, and Brazel's somebody that can make those third down plays for Baker Mayfield. That's all wishful thinking on my part, and greedy thinking on my part. But I'm sitting here watching him at practice and at games, and I'm like, yeah, that's somebody that I would love to have on my team in the league in a couple of years. But he's been phenomenal, and I think he's only going to get better.
Absolutely. One of the big things about the defense, and you mentioned the couple of touchdowns, but they did give up almost 200 yards rushing in the game. And there's been periods of the season where, and understandably so because of injuries, there have been some holes in the defense overall. Is this a point of concern, or do you think they have just enough playmakers to be a bend but don't break style of defense and give their offense just enough space to come out and win maybe some shootouts or higher scoring games?
No, absolutely. I think there was definitely some issues with Vols defense on Saturday, and that was something that really stood out to me. Is I'm like, I don't know if Mississippi State is, a really good offense, or if they're just making this defense look bad. But they scored 2 touchdowns. And so at the end of the day, it's one of those things where, you wipe the slate clean on their behalf, because there was a few players that had phenomenal games. We had Tyree West in the trenches. Arion Carter was having a phenomenal game, but, they were able to move the ball all over the field. They were able, like you said, to run the ball like crazy. Fluff Bothwell, that's one of my favorite names in college football now, not just for what he can do, but that guy can play. And he was, we'll see what that looks like against some other SEC front lines, but he certainly made Tennessee's defense looked like they had some holes in it. You wipe the slate clean because they scored 2 touchdowns, but yes, there is some areas of concern on that defense. And yes, there's a couple injuries, when they get all their DBs back healthy, that could, certainly make a difference as we move forward. But I would say that game did draw a cause for concern on that side of the ball, no doubt.
Absolutely. You mentioned that the Arkansas game is coming up. There's a week off between today and that game. Arkansas is obviously in a lot of trouble. Bobby Petrino now in. That defense has been super leaky. What do you think the message is this week? Because it feels like the Arkansas game could be a trap game as Alabama sits 3 weeks away. However, there is this off week for the coaches to kind of lend their message and be able to kind of prepare for both teams. What do you think, Josh Heupel, and the team's messages overall for the coaching staff to these players with Alabama looming around the corner?
No, absolutely. I think that can definitely be a trap game, especially, we see so often that when these teams, lose their head coach, there's a bit of that rally factor coming around. Like, okay, we're all right now. This is Petrino's team. We're playing for him. We got to bring the energy. But having the bye certainly does help. You think about it ahead of time, like, man, why do you want the bye before Arkansas? Wouldn't you want it before Bama? Or wouldn't you want it before Georgia? Obviously, Georgia was early in the season. But I think having the bye does help a lot because you get that, okay, we can't overlook this game. Bama's around the corner, but all preparations right now have to be on Arkansas because the way things are going, you got the loss to Georgia, which you're fine so far with that, but you lose to Arkansas, and all of a sudden, you are climbing a major uphill battle for the college football playoff if you drop that game. They lost it last year, over in Fayetteville. So I think for those guys that were here last year and got to experience that man, we almost blew our entire season over here in Fayetteville. I think there's also that revenge factor of, yeah, they got us last year. Not only are we going to not overlook this game and focus on it, but we're going to come and we're going to make them pay for what they did to us last year. But we'll see how it goes next Saturday. There's still a lot of time between now and then, a lot of things that can happen. Hopefully the Vols continue to get more healthy because it seems like each week they're dropping a couple of guys. But right now, I think the bye week is going to help them to keep that focus on all things Arkansas.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sam, before we let you go, wild card round starting today. Who you got?
I see the Cubs shirt. I know we don't have a 5 o'clock show today because the Cubs are playing on ABC. So that certainly makes me happy for that playoff baseball. But I'm gonna roll with the Cubs. I know.
Okay.
This is. I'm gonna roll with them. I'm gonna roll. I don't know about the series, but I think today they're gonna go and they're gonna, maybe jazz things up a bit and pull that up today.
Great answer. I love it. It's a little shaky early, and I tell you what, Sammy, with this team, I love my boys to death. But an 8-0 lead in the 7th inning is still not safe.
No.
with these
It's
guys.
never safe in baseball.
So, it is never safe. But Sam, we appreciate your time so much, and I know you get a little bit of a break this week with the Vols. Good luck to your Tampa Bay Bucks this week, trying to get back on track here, and obviously, with a lot of baseball and a lot of football to cover. We know you guys are really busy, and give our best to Sam and Casey.
Will do, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right.